It's July 23rd, 2018, and it's time to review 5 of the most outrageous, infuriating, or just plain baffling things that have happened lately. It's your Facepalm 5. Let's count them down. Number 1. Trump and Putin, two atrocious men. Treason. Donald Trump spent some time in Europe over the last 2 weeks. How'd that go? Well, he attended a NATO summit in Brussels where he again insulted some of America's closest and most important allies and demonstrated that he still doesn't understand how NATO is funded. None of the other members owe us money. That's not how it works. I know you've had this explained to you. Why are you like this? But the big news from the European trip came last week when Trump met with Russian leader Vladimir Putin in Helsinki, Finland. 2 days before Trump met with Putin, Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein announced indictments against 12 Russian intelligence agents for hacking the Democratic National Committee and the Hillary Clinton presidential campaign. Those indictments were the result of Robert Mueller's investigation, by the way, which Trump continues to call a witch hunt. Weirdly, Rosenstein informed Trump about the indictments prior to his meeting with Putin, offering to delay the announcement until after Trump had returned from Europe. And Trump told him to go ahead, reportedly because he hoped the indictments would strengthen his hand in the meeting with Putin. But guess what happened? Why am I doing it this way? You know what happened. Trump and Putin had a private meeting for which their translators were the only other people present. Then they held a press conference where Trump announced that Putin had denied any interference in the 2016 US presidential campaign, and Trump believed him. So that's the result of Trump walking into the meeting with Putin with indictments against 12 members of Putin's foreign intelligence service in his back pocket? That P-tape must be something else. Democrats in the United States Congress proposed issuing a subpoena to Trump's translator to compel her to testify as a witness as to what was said during the meeting with Putin, and Republicans blocked it. Because why would Congress want to know what the president, who is currently under investigation for possibly colluding with a foreign government that launched cyber attacks against the United States to help get him elected, talked about in private with the leader of that government? It's just silly how okay so many of us seem with the looming collapse of our republic. Okay, and we'll cut there. Did I get through all of that without making any homophobic jokes about Trump and Putin? I did. Wow, that was easy. Number 2, congressional Republicans introduce bill targeting anti-fascists. Strange as it may sound, people who support our fascist president seem to really hate people who make a point of opposing fascism. Last month, Republicans in the House of Representatives introduced the Unmasking Antifa Act, a bill that would establish a prison term of up to 15 years for anyone who, quote, injures, oppresses, threatens, or intimidates anyone engaged in the free exercise or enjoyment of any right or privilege. Ever since masked leftist demonstrators began showing up to challenge right-wingers and white supremacists, most notably during protest marches following the inauguration of Donald Trump and the neo-Nazi Unite the Right rally last year in Charlottesville, Virginia, people on the right have been working overtime to vilify anti-fascists and exaggerate the threat they pose to the public. But the same legislators, administration officials, and commentators who are supposedly so concerned about the danger represented by masked Antifa protesters don't seem that bothered at all by the resurgent white nationalists and fascists whose activities compel Antifa members to show up in the first place. Walter Shives, the former head of the Office of Government Ethics, who resigned last year expressing grave concerns about the lack of ethics being displayed by the Trump administration, described the Unmasking Antifa Act this way. 2 groups go to Charlottesville. A big group chants racist filth, wields semi-automatic assault rifles, fires a gun into a crowd, and murders a woman with a car. A small group wears masks. It's the small group these congressmen want to lock up for 15 years. Authoritarianism rises. Schaub also suggested it should be called the Guns Don't Kill People, Kerchiefs Do Act. That title makes the bill sound absurd because, of course, kerchiefs don't kill people, but the point is, neither do anti-fascists. Neo-Nazis and other right-wing extremists do. That has been the case for a while, and Congress seems in no hurry to do anything about it. Number 3, congressional Republicans spend a day undermining the FBI. FBI agent Peter Strzok testified before Congress last week. Strzok worked on the Bureau's investigations into Hillary Clinton's emails and the ties between Russia and Donald Trump's presidential campaign. Strzok was a member of Robert Mueller's investigative team until Mueller removed him following the discovery of thousands of text messages Strzok had exchanged with Lisa Page, a lawyer who had also worked with Mueller, with whom Strzok was having an affair. Some of the texts, which were sent in 2016 prior to the presidential election, are overtly anti-Trump, with Strzok describing Trump as a loathsome human and at one point reassuring Page that Trump would not become president because, quote, "we'll stop it." Republicans at the congressional hearing were not happy about that. They repeatedly accused Strzok and the FBI in general of trying to hurt Trump and help Hillary Clinton, with more than one Republican flat out declaring they didn't believe Strzok when he said his personal feelings about Trump didn't influence his work on the investigation. Here are a few of the problems with the case Republicans are trying to make against Strzok and the FBI. Despite his anti-Trump feelings, no one has been able to show that Strzok did anything to try and sway the election one way or the other. Strzok was not the only investigator on the case, he was not working without supervision, and if anything, the FBI, specifically then Director James Comey, ultimately helped Trump win the election. Strzok was removed from the Mueller investigation a year ago. That investigation is still ongoing and has resulted in dozens of indictments and several guilty pleas, and yet most of the Republicans who were grilling Strzok during that hearing still consider it a witch hunt that should be abandoned immediately. And one last thing, Strzok, on his own time, in private, as far as he knew, describing Trump as loathsome doesn't prove anything other than that Strzok possesses some semblance of decency. I'm suspicious of anyone who doesn't consider Trump to be loathsome. Number 4, the She-Ra Reboot Haters Club. You know that thing where grown-ups get really upset in public over a children's cartoon doing something they don't like? This is that thing. So She-Ra is He-Man's twin sister. She was created by Mattel to appeal to little girls after their He-Man line became the favorite thing ever of little boys like me. And like He-Man, She-Ra's toy line was supported by a cartoon series, She-Ra Princess of Power. Later this year, a reboot of the cartoon titled She-Ra and the Princesses of Power will debut on Netflix. Last week, the showrunner for the reboot tweeted out the first images from the show. Lots of people, including me, thought they looked pretty cool. Other people had a different opinion, like this pissy man baby who tweeted that the She-Ra reboot was an attack on strong, beautiful women, declaring everything pure from our history is getting beaten with the ugly stick, which doesn't sound like Nazi rhetoric run through a dude bro translator at all, does it? The problem a lot of the people complaining have with the look of the new She-Ra is that she's not sexy enough. I'll say that again. They think the protagonist of the reboot of the cartoon show that was created to sell toys to children isn't sexy enough. You know, it's not that I'm surprised to learn how many dudes about my age have apparently been jerking off to She-Ra this whole time, but what does surprise me a little is how willing and even eager so many of them are to let everybody else know about it. Not that there's anything to be ashamed of necessarily, it's just that personally, if I were so invested in masturbating to the image of a lady from a cartoon that I actually became angry when I saw that the rebooted version of the lady didn't give me the urge to masturbate, I would keep that to myself. But that's me. That would be my choice. And now it's time for the segment devoted to some of the other things Donald Trump has done recently to disgrace the presidency and embarrass and/or endanger the United States and the rest of the world. It's number 5, the further misadventures of Lord Dampnut. Please keep in mind, as always, the following is not a complete list. Back to that meeting with Putin in Helsinki, Trump came home and claimed that he didn't mean to say that he didn't see why Russia would interfere in the election to help him win. He meant to say that he didn't see why they wouldn't, which is a totally plausible explanation as long as you ignore everything else Trump said at that press conference and also the rest of his life up to that point. As I already mentioned, he also had plenty of fun in Europe before the Putin meeting. During his visit with the UK, he criticized Prime Minister Theresa May for not following his advice on how to deal with Brexit, then denied that he criticized her. Except the person he was talking to when he criticized her worked for The Sun, and they just wrote down what he said. Trump also told The Sun that he was the most popular Republican Republican in history, even more popular than Lincoln, who died decades before the existence of presidential job approval polls and who was also a great president for reasons other than his popularity. The New York Times reported that Trump's longtime lawyer, Michael Cohen, had secretly recorded a conversation with Trump about paying $150,000 to buy the story of Karen McDougal, with whom Trump had an affair in 2006. And no, that's Stormy Daniels. This story is about Karen McDougal, another model Trump cheated on his wife with. There you go. The conversation with Cohen took place before the election, while Trump and his campaign were denying that the affair with McDougal took place, or that Trump knew anything about any payments to her. But of course, it turns out that wasn't true, because Trump. On Twitter a few days later, Trump whined, "Inconceivable that the government would break into a lawyer's office early in the morning. Almost unheard of." The FBI didn't break into Cohen's office. They executed a lawful search warrant. Trump also wrote, "The good news is that your favorite president did nothing wrong." Oh, I wouldn't say that. Obama was great, but he was far from perfect. Think of the number of drone strikes that were conducted during his administration. That alone should be enough to give one very serious... Trump wasn't referring to Obama in that tweet? Who was he talking about? And last week, Trump reacted to the European Union levying a $5 billion antitrust fine against Google by tweeting this: "I told you so! The European Union just slapped a $5 billion fine on one of our great companies, Google. They truly have taken advantage of the US, but not for long." No, see, a foreign government fining an American company for breaking their rules isn't taking advantage of the US. Taking advantage of the US would be like agents of a hostile foreign government launching cyber attacks against the US to get a candidate who they had incriminating information about elected president of the United States, so that president could then undermine America's relationships with its allies while furthering the interests of that hostile foreign government. You know what I'm saying? That's 5. Speak out, act out, resist, look after each other. Hey folks, hope you got something out of this one. If you did, please click like and share and subscribe to this channel if you're not subbed already. And also, please consider helping me to make more videos like this one by supporting this channel through Patreon. You can go to patreon.com/Steve Shives to become a patron of this channel for as little as $1 a month. And those $1 a month pledges really help me out. But if you can afford it and you think I'm worth it, you can pledge at higher levels. And if you pledge at $5 a month or more, you can take advantage of some extra perks, including a shout out at the end of the Facepalm 5. So here are my newest $5 or more per month patrons. Gods of Elf and Man by Nathan A. Klein. Thank you, Nathan. Frank Marlin. Thank you, Frank. And Lawrence Cox. Thank you, Lawrence. Thanks to all of you, whether you're patrons or not, whatever level you're pledging at. If you are patrons, thanks so much just for watching the video and liking and sharing and all the other free stuff. I appreciate it so much, and I'll see you next time.